Yeah. Okay, welcome to this book discussion of doing Imago relationship therapy in the space between. We are on chapter 11 officially, and of course, people can share whatever they want to share from wherever they are in the book. But this chapter is called The Imago Therapist, the mechanics and artistry of connecting. And like chapter 10, which I felt was really important to really think about the position or stance of the therapist and what we're thinking as we're working, where our attention energy is. This continues that conversation. So we have Julia, who you may or may not want to be on camera, and Michael. Michael, anything from this chapter that you want to just bring in right away or share?
Actually, from the last two, both the last chapter and this chapter, as a non-therapist, and I did attend the first part of the clinical training. I would say I don't remember any of this being in the clinical training when I did it.
Mm.
And I love, well, I don't know any Imago therapists that have been around for a long time. I would say that I think that they might get a lot out of these two chapters because, like I said, I don't remember a lot being in the clinical training, and I don't remember a lot. A lot of this stuff is really new in the way it's packaged and in the new in the languaging, and I think it's coming together, if you want to call it that, say that.
Yeah, no, I like that you're sharing this. So, like, you did the first 4 days, the clinical training, you don't really remember any of this being in there. And I think that that makes a lot of sense because, in a way, and I'll start with the first sentence of the chapter. There are three kinds of therapists: mechanics, craftspersons, and artists. And in the first 4 days of the Mago clinical training, we are just trying to get to mechanics. Just the really basic stuff of like the couples facing each other and taking turns and mirroring. And we aren't expecting people, even really, I would say at the certification level, I'm not necessarily looking for somebody to be even at the craftsperson level. That comes with more advanced courses and practice. And then, of course, somebody who's been doing it for 20 years, you really get into the artistry where almost all the rules can go out the window in a way because they're so attuned. So it makes sense to me that it may not have been taught or it may even not been mentioned. And I think it can be, and even if people aren't ready to hear it yet,
Mhm.
it still can be emphasized over and over again because it is almost breaking every rule of my original clinical training, which really puts me as the expert, me as a source of healing and the source of answers. So it's a big leap to say that the space between is that. That is a foreign concept in my field to
And
most people, most people.
and to add to that, I mean, the handful of therapists that I know and that I interact with on a pretty regular basis, they're traditional therapists, if I can say it that way.
Mhm.
And the fact that, like, the emphasis on non-diagnosis and not using the traditional methods, I I have been in I wouldn't call them arguments, but conversations with those therapists that they would, I think that they would react, in a lot of cases they react to the idea that all humans in all cases, comes from disconnection and trauma, early childhood needs not being met, and that they would bring up examples. Well, what about this and what about that? And So
Yeah. So Michael, you
yes.
you know that there's a lot of people who would push back on this theory and really challenge it and say, no, there's all these other things that are valid in terms of diagnosing. Yeah. Well, I just want to read a couple sentences in the first couple pages that sort of support what we're talking about. So this is the first paragraph after the title, The Therapist as Facilitator, on page 246. And the last sentence of that first paragraph, remember the primary goal is to focus on their connection, not to be the solution provider. So we can intellectually understand that, but emotionally we can be very induced to trying to provide solutions. And also even trying to make the connection happen uh, versus bring them through a process to find their connection. Like I can be induced to kind of explaining why they should feel connected sometimes versus just letting the process happen. Um, and then it goes on, and Imago therapist helps couples become relationally competent by placing the therapeutic power in the hands of the partners rather than keeping them in the hands of the therapist. And I think that is can be challenging when our brain is telling us that they're doing it wrong, that they're making a mistake, that they're, that they need to do word for word mirroring instead of some, an essence mirror, or they need to make eye contact right now, or, our brain is telling us something's not happening that should be happening versus just waiting to see, let it be for a moment and see this might be how this couple is connecting. Yeah. But our brains tell us, uh-oh, something's wrong and I gotta get in there. Um, and then this kind of adding to this, they go on to write, since the quality of their interactions is internalized as memory and becomes the content of their inner world, so their subjectivity, it is important that their achievement be associated with their relational competence rather than the therapist's relational competence. So I had a little mark by that because it was hard for me to wrap my brain exactly around what is being said there. Uh, but what I take that to mean is that sometimes when I'm working, and I see this a lot with people I'm working training too, it's like there's this pressure to have the perfect stem or bring them to this place and prove my competency versus supporting where they're doing well and supporting their experience of relational competency.
May I share from a, a different, from my past in
Yeah.
facilitating groups of people? One of the things that I became very aware of at a certain point in time is the definition of participation and how most people had a very clear mental model that participation looked a certain way. If they were engaged in the, they were physically in the room, they were talking to people, they were this or they were that. But I remember like really understanding that they could be outside in the hall having a cup of coffee, and that is participating. Like there wasn't, and I'm leaving out a lot of details because our work was all collaborative facilitation and a lot problem solving and lots of interaction over days. But my point is that participation, so in this particular sentence, the competence of the couple, what relating looks like is unique to them, and it doesn't necessarily need to look like my mental model of what connecting looks like or what relating looks like.
Yeah.
And that's very important because just like I was saying in the facilitation process, like I didn't freak out when people walked out or when they were turned away or when they were having private conversations or when they were doing, because the definition of participation went really big so that I could still hold that they're still participating in the process, even though it didn't look like that to my brain or to some
Yeah.
other people's
Right.
brains.
So how can we as a couples therapist or any doing any Imago process, how can we kind of think about Mel Robbins' book, Let Them, how can we just let them be themselves? Just maybe this is a version of connecting that we don't know about. And to at least give it a moment to see what happens.
Yeah.
And I just came out. Part of why we had to move the time today is because I wanted to go to a presentation about neurodiversity and working with neurodiversity. And so the presenters did a beautiful job of talking about how with maybe an autistic person or somebody who you know functions in a different way with ADHD or whatever that like eye contact might be different or how they empathize might be different and to really let the partner decide if that felt
Mm,
like a validating statement or that felt empathic and if not what would like I'm seeing how because I am like this I'm autistic. I'm
mm,
seeing how I've adapted the dialogue and the way I work with things like instead of did I get it, which is very precise, is am I with you?
mm,
It's like, am I generally with you? Okay, we can move forward now versus like, am I getting it exactly? Well, I don't know if you're getting it exactly. Now we're getting into this whole thing. Or rather than saying no, because I don't like it when people say no. Like, am I getting you? And someone says no, I don't like that. So I teach them to say, well, what I want to add or emphasize so that we can sort of keep flowing forward with like, I have an opportunity to make this adjustment
mm.
and then you can mirror it. So anyway, I think this is a good example of how we can support the couple with what feels like relational competency for them versus imposing our own idea or trying to prove our relational competency.
And I will add, and in my personal experience in the interdynamics between couples, I know my personal experience is that there are times when I react to my wife's definition of connecting versus mine, or I feel like I'm being relational and she says I'm not. And so I'm like, there is this the same that we're talking about from a therapist to the couple. There's the intercouple dynamics where there are times when an individual's competent relational competence is different from another individual's relational competence. And we might not see that initially, but there might be some tension between the couple in that form.
Hmm. Most of the time, I would
Yeah.
say that's what brings the couples in. So, I'm going to try to read this next paragraph, which is on page 247, the first full one. The transformational power of this reconfiguration of the therapy process lies in the unique meaning of partners for each other, a meaning that the therapist does not have and cannot earn. Because they are an imago match, each has an expectation that the other will meet their need from childhood that is showing up in their relationship. And then the next paragraph goes on to say more about that. But just basically, that what I'm hearing in this paragraph is like no matter how much as a therapist I might want to be the person that is the source of their healing. I cannot be. I never will be. The brain just won't acknowledge that even if I perfectly attuned to
Yeah.
that individual, it wouldn't matter because they need their partner to do it. So I was like, oh, that's a really cool paragraph. Building on the Imago match concept that I think they, Harville and Helen, really established well previously in previous chapters. And then I put a little star by this sentence, Michael. The listening and empathic therapist, which is such a like, oh, thank you. I'm listening and I'm empathic. And then they go on and kind of say, is tempted to both evoke awareness and insight or become the substitute caretaker and offer what the caretakers were unable to give. So it's kind of funny. It's like, yes, you're such a good empathic therapist and you really want to do a good job and you want to meet their needs, but there are no receptors in the brains of their partners to receive from another what must come from a parental facsimile.
So just going back to the first part, in the trainings that you do now, is that like just that alone? Does that show up in the trainings that you do now?
Yes and no. I think, when I'm training the first 12 days, I can say this, and it's like, it's a very important factor, right? I can say it in 1,000 different ways that the space between is the healing source, that, there's an imago match and whatever conflict they're having is growth trying to happen and they need to get it. I can say it all these different ways, but they won't probably hear it until they have digested those 12 days. They're working in their office. They keep running into, wow, I keep getting stuck. Oh,
Mm.
I get stuck because I am interfering with the space between, right? And once they get that, then they're ready to hear this. So this is like the attuned therapist, brilliant at the basics, a little bit more advanced. So yeah, we say it and we can't really expect somebody to let go of all their years of learning how to be a therapist, wanting to be an expert, that being reinforced through grad school, and have them ready to shed that right away. So we start to talk about it, but I think
Are,
this is a big concept that we're all still working on.
are you aware of, oh, this is not somebody's doing an introduction to imago therapy. And this seems like it's more introduction to the relational clinical training introduction. It's next Friday. Anyway, I was trying to one of these things, I want to go to it. It's an introduction for therapists to imago therapy. I want to sometime go to it because I want to see how imago therapy is being introduced to or framed for therapists.
Yeah.
And this one that I was looking at was yeah, Caroline Bernard Lanier.
Yep. Yep. Caroline. And I know what she's presenting. Oh, here's Bonnie. That's great. Um, I know what she's presenting, and it's a basic tenets of Imago. So it's definitely conflict is growth trying to happen, and our partner holds a blueprint for our growth because they have our lost parts, and we both, and again, it just will touch briefly on the role of the therapist and how, hey, Bonnie, how the role of the therapist is different in the Imago model. But this is what was healing for me, Michael. I was sitting next to Harville at the dinner dance at the Imago conference in Chicago. So Harville and I are chatting, and first of all, I told him, oh, we're doing a book discussion. We have like almost 800 people in the Facebook group, and we're reading your book, and we still love it. And he goes something like, kind of pithy, like, oh, so someone might actually read this book I spent 17 years of my life writing. And I said, well, damn it, Harville, if it's the last thing I do on this earth, yes, they're going to read it because it's so brilliant. But he said to me, he goes, it took me 10 years to get the relational paradigm. And
Mm,
that's really what we're talking about is a relational paradigm for being a therapist in the relational paradigm where we are not the source of healing.
mm.
And it made me feel better. I'm like, if Harville, the founder, it took him 10 years and 17 years to write this book, then maybe I don't need to understand it immediately. And that maybe it's a long journey.
Great. That's a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, we're going to keep doing this book discussion. We're going to keep going. We're just going to circle back around and start from chapter 1 again because I know that I could read it again next year and hear completely different things, learn completely different nuances. So, Bonnie, we're just still on 247, talking about how there are no receptors in the brains, like there's no receptors in the brain for us to get our healing from the therapist, that we need it from our partners. So the therapist can be brilliant and empathic and offer all these great ideas, but ultimately, until Stephen is meeting my needs, I don't care. You can be as whatever warm as you want, but I would need him to be warm. So, and then they end this paragraph, and to offer this instead of facilitating the process with a couple disempowers them.
Yeah.
That's a great sentence to me. Like, so we're not empowering this couple to find their own answers, but we're really disempowering them when we try to come in with our solutions. Anything you want to say, Bonnie, about anything? Just glad you're here.
Mhm.
You're
You're
muted.
muted, Bonnie.
Don't get in a car accident, okay? But unmute.
Is your car driving for you? Okay, good. You're in the
Oh,
passenger seat.
there's
Excellent.
the lucky
Excellent.
lady.
Excellent.
Okay. Can you unmute
You're
though?
still muted, yeah.
Oh, now we lost the signal probably. Let me see. Okay, well, she'll come back. So yeah, so I mean, I think, Michael, I love that you're asking this question because because I believe in the relational paradigm and I believe that, people can be mirroring and validating, taking turns and looking, they can be doing all of that. But if we're not operating out of the relational paradigm, we're not really doing Imago,
Mm.
right? If we're trying to solve problems instead of learn about each other, if I'm trying to get this couple to do something other than just feel connected. So I think it's so important. So I talk about this a lot. I talk about the space between, and people aren't necessarily ready to hear it yet. That they're ready to hear it at different levels. So a lot of times what will happen is maybe years later or an advanced training or something, somebody will say, oh, I got it. I'm getting it now, like, oh, because it's hard to get. It's beyond an intellectual thing. It's a paradigm shift, right? It's like, and our whole society is built around a different paradigm. So, I mean, it's really hard to apply this. And I think especially when it comes to things like politics or Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, you're like, we can be all like everybody makes sense until we encounter somebody that our brain just can't make sense of. And then it's really hard. It's really hard to say, oh, that's the blueprint for my growth, or there's something here for me to understand. It's really hard as the holidays approach, right?
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
partially why I brought it up in terms of the clinical training that I did participate in, but also just wondering where it shows up and how it shows up. Because when I said before that it's coming together, to me, the way this is packaged is pretty together. It's, and I think it's just different than anything. Like you don't read about it this way in the original book. You don't read about it this way in much of any of the stuff prior, like just the more recent stuff is really where the space between where quantum theory comes in, where using dialogue for everything and all the time. Like I don't know that I ever heard anywhere in this chapter, it literally almost we could find it somewhere. I highlighted it, but it's like dialogue should be every conversation, whether it's formal or informal, dialogue should be a way of life.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think that's really, yes, I think that's really important for us to unpack because if we think of dialogue as just mirroring and validation and these steps, you know, do I need to mirror past assaults, And, but if we understand dialogue is dialogical, dialogue
Uh,
is a position that we're all equals. And one thing that Harville talked about in Chicago, I don't know if you got the recording, but I got it. I want to listen to it again because he and Helen are talking a lot about real love, a lot, and about this last stage. And they're and Joanne Ayudatis just did some great work about the workshop and how they've changed the workshop over the years. And they're looking at the processes and like, is a regressive parent-child dialogue connecting,
hmm,
or does it bring us out of connection and then we have to come back into connection? And is there another way to do that? Exploring our unmet needs where we don't lose connection with the partner. And they're just asking some really compelling questions. And one of the things that Harville talked about was instead of flooding, which is kind of like, here's all the things you do that I appreciate, right? I
mhm,
appreciate how you look. I appreciate what you're doing. He's like, you go to just affirming them as a human being, that you are a miraculous piece of the universe, a child of the universe, and a special soul. And I see you, and your value is that. And if I start from that position,
hmm,
I can rid myself of expectations of what kind of behavior you need to have to deserve my love. I don't know if I'm doing it justice, but that's kind of where
hmm.
Harville is going and taking the faculty and taking all of us to, yeah, to move into a position. And that to me is being dialogical all the time.
That's good.
And we also have to acknowledge that our whole system is wired for reactivity. So although I may want to be like that all the time, see my husband in that light, it requires a lot of commitment and daily practice and being very intentional. And if I'm low resource, tired, hungry, menopausal, whatever I am, well, kind of all those things all at the same time, it's harder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, there was something you said in there, but well, relating to the workshop in terms of questioning some of the activities and whether they are bringing us out of connection. Somewhere in this chapter, again, I've highlighted it where they Harville and Helen say essentially that it's not okay in the therapist's office to do that kind of issue focused talking about the past, bringing up the like we should find it because we should really unpack that too, because obviously stuff comes up. And
Yeah, I think it might be keep a balance between content and process.
it might be in relation to the content and process, but I will find it because it is like against the rules, quote unquote, like not okay to have
Okay, no, but I like what they're saying there.
skills. No. And I think it might be here at the end of being safe on 253. I haven't read this fully to make sure this is it, but essentially the couple needs an environment in which they can dream their dream rather than merely remember and recite their suffering and raise their defenses.
Mm.
To facilitate that, the Imago therapist resists pressuring clients to talk about the presenting problem or asking them to recite past abuses or allowing them to make negative remarks about each other in the session. In fact, because toxic exchanges imprint the therapist's office with associations of pain, these exchanges are not allowed. This may be just as much of a challenge for the therapist as it is for the couple seeking treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I love that.
I think we need unpacking there because I don't know, like, I get it theoretically and I totally get the intent but in practice, I guess the emphasis is on the therapist resisting the diving into or the further exploration of, I don't know,
Well,
there's something more there.
yeah, let me share some thoughts and see if this is kind of getting to what you're pointing to. So when a couple comes in, their mind is made up that they have a problem and that they need a solution. And they may even have a solution, the partner's the problem, because if I was the problem, I would have already fixed it. So they
Mhm.
must be the problem, and I have a solution. And the therapist can get really hooked into this trap, especially if the problem is addiction or affairs or something really salacious or something our partner does or something that we hate, whatever. Maybe they're in what we think is a wrong political party or whatever that is. And then we get seduced into the conversation being about that
Mhm.
and how much I hate it and how much it hurts when you do it and blah, blah, blah. And so what we do is we use stems. We let them touch on their frustration briefly, like a BCR. But then we move to, and what I want. So like I was just working with a couple and she wanted, well, yeah, she wanted him to set very, very direct, firm boundaries with any other woman, just da da da. But I know when she's telling him that, I know that he doesn't know what that means. So I give her the stem and what that text would read, what this would sound like, because he doesn't know, because being direct wasn't safe for him for whatever reason. I don't know him. But I know that he loves her directness. He was attracted to her directness and he doesn't have it.
Mm.
And I know he's a little more passive when it comes to conflict and that she needs some of that passivity and softness when it comes to conflict, right? So I know all this. So now I'm just trying to move them forward to, and if you could do that, what that would mean to me, what would that mean about me, how I would feel. And so he's really getting, oh, you are, we got to like her fear that like she would have to break up with him and lose him because she couldn't trust him. And like he could get that, and then move to like, and what makes it hard for him to be so direct, what he's afraid of if he were to do that. And we didn't have time to get into their histories. It was just a first session, but I'm always pulling them forward into the future to what's possible, to what they want, to their desires, instead of deepening into the hurt.
Mhm.
When you do that, I feel, and that's like my childhood and blah, 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 that actually can get them very stuck. I want them to move forward into the vision first. Once they have a clear vision, now we can explore what makes it hard to get to the vision. And we may go into childhood to understand where our character adaptations or the rules we're living by come from. But sometimes linking the pain to the childhood pain only deepens the pain and really gets them stuck. Does
Isn't
that
there?
make any sense?
Oh, totally, totally. Isn't there a part in the workshop where one of the activities where you do one of those?
You do a
It reminds
parent-child
me of.
dialogue, yeah.
Is it only the parent-child that it
No,
reminds
we
me
we go
of? It's
back
like,
to history a lot. So
yeah,
appreciations, why I appreciate this, how it's similar,
yeah,
different.
yeah.
Appreciation is a little bit easier, and actually it's a great place to start because the unmet need and the values will come up in the appreciations.
Mhm.
So her appreciation to him was, you've changed this thing, and because you've changed this thing, I knew you listened to me and I know I matter to you. So I matter is the unmet need. And I can just put money on the fact that whatever the complaint is has to do with, I don't feel like I matter. So, it's, yeah, it always goes back to the unmet need, but I think therapists, we can be tempted into deepening the pain.
Mm.
That hurts me because, and when you do that, I feel this, and this was painful because this was also painful. And it's not like a rule to never go there, but it's just understanding like, when do we deepen there? Are they ready? Are they ready to recognize sort of the template of their history and how they're projecting it into this relationship? But if it's a first session, I want them to have a clear vision. So
Mm.
they care about each other. They want a peaceful relationship where they trust each other. There's good boundaries, you know.
Mm.
Yeah. And then just knowing that there's a lot of good reasons why they can't get it yet. Anyway, I don't know if that kind of points to what you're talking about, but I
Yep.
think that it's very tempting for us as therapists to go towards pain and deepen pain.
Yeah, you are saying, I'll read what they say in the book, the next sentence, because that you're saying something like this. Rather than diagnosing the pathology of a relationship, the Imago therapist facilitates the expression and actualization of desire with which, if they had it, nothing would be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, of course, they want to focus on content and outcomes and not process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least one of them will. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, if they've been in therapy, and a lot of people have now been in therapy, they think therapy is about unpacking and, our history and understanding ourselves. And it's like they don't understand that the agenda here in couples therapy is different, is we're only going there in service of the connection. And we know that actually most of the time it's not helping the connection, maybe just a little bit. So, I mean, I believe in the parent-child dialogue and that process so much because it's where I can reimagine my partner as a child who got hurt, and I have compassion for that pain, and that gives me motivation to understand how I'm falling into the same I'm causing the same kind of pain with similar behaviors. So I do think it's a really powerful process, but I like that we're asking the question, is there another way to get there? Rather than a full regression where my husband becomes 7 years old and I
Mm.
become his parent, is there another way to get there? Or is that the best way to get there?
I
Maybe
like it.
both, maybe different things for different times.
Well, the
But
other
yeah, we want to keep looking for what you were looking for, because is that it?
that I think that's it. And I want to the yes and to what you I want to yes and what you just said, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Given the quantum nature of the space between, is it possible that just continuing to stay in the land of possibility morphs, it becomes the new reality and morphs any of this old stuff. So maybe there is no really strict need to make the actual connection to this happened in my childhood, and that's why I react in this way to
Mm-hmm.
you, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of those things dissipate and disappear by being in the quantum field. And
Yeah, I mean, that's where they're kind of heading. And I think that that's the idea, is that we could potentially let go of all these ego-based stories and just live in a loving environment all the time, full of wonder uh, and you know, but so I did this demo. So a couple came in and we did it in front of a training group, and I never met them before. And I had them basically, start with appreciations, and then we did like a dreaming tomorrow dialogue where they just talk about um, what they want in the next like week or two, what that would look like, what it would mean. And what came up was, their unmet needs came up very clearly through that dialogue, and their fears that neither one of them was enough, you know, and the different ways that showed up. And in that, especially the one partner was touching on some of the resentments and the pain and where they were missed and what they're still holding on to. And the partner could mirror it and could hear it and could validate it. But we're moving forward into what we want in the next 2 weeks. So we didn't linger there, go deep there, get stuck there, but we did acknowledge, validate it. It makes sense, and here's one thing we can do in the next 2 weeks that will move us forward to where we want to go. So to me, that's like, it's both and.
yeah.
It's not doing away with that. It's just not putting so much energy into it. Yeah. Because of course it's there. Of course we're resentful and we're frustrated and we're not getting all our needs met. Like, that's a normal relationship.
This is pretty strong language in this paragraph to say these exchanges are not allowed. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and I would agree 100%. I do not let people do that. I just don't let this is not a event or dump or whatever. And thankfully most people warn me.
yeah,
Hey, Bonnie.
I'm
Most
fine.
We're talking about let's see, where is it? This is not allowed.
Page 254, the top paragraph is a continuation of the last bit
Yeah.
on 253.
Yeah. So to facilitate that, the Imago therapist resists pressuring clients to talk about the presenting problem or asking them to recite past abuses or allowing them to make negative remarks about the other in session. And it talks about how like those negative things imprint like an association of pain with the therapist's office and with therapy itself, and says these exchanges are not allowed. So I I 100% agree with this. I do not allow that, but rather than criticizing them, which has been my old trap, and say these are not allowed, I'm more like the good mommy who distracts the puppy or the kiddo from what they are going after with, like, well, but let's try to think about what you want right now. So what I would really love moving forward in the next week, or what that would sound like if I got it. Like, I just move them forward so they don't know I'm not allowing it. I mean, maybe they kind of know a little bit, but I'm like, I'm moving them to where I want them to go.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, and but a lot of times they warn me. They'll say, "Well, I probably shouldn't say this," and I go, "Great, don't. Let's try this instead." Thank you for the warning. I've learned to catch that one every time now. What do you want to
Everything
share,
in the
Bonnie, now that you're here and you're not in the car?
Now that I'm here and obviously don't know how to do Zoom on my phone to get both video and uh, audio. Anyway, this is a big departure to me.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, even I guess as late as maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, in any continued training, this was still an emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can't get empathy for your partner unless you really get what shit that happened to them when they were a kid, and we got to keep trying to find that, and blah blah blah. So I like what Harville said. I didn't know it was already in the book. That's interesting. And I, hey,
You're not alone,
and
babe. You are not alone.
thank you very much. And I I think that when I have not put a piece of paper in their hand, but shortcut a little bit of the behavior change request or frustration dialogue, as we call it, I have found that it's really helpful if the person said, "Gosh, if there's any chance you could do this, it would really make me feel loved or cared about or whatever." Uh, to have the person who's listening to all this stuff say, I remember when we had the workbooks where it says, "No, I'll never be able to do it. I kind of could do it. Yes, I'll do it." I mean, it was measured like up your butt. So, but at least for the person to say, come to think of it, what might get in the way of me being able to give that to you.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to go down, but I think that's kind of helpful for them to say, that's kind of it. And then you kind of skate on that as opposed to make them go deep down. I think I would want to keep that in
Mm-hmm.
and, encourage them to say, and I want that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if I'm still in the mode as a client that I think you've been doing all of this stuff on purpose, we aren't going to get to that for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, there is a departure, and I I I think it can feel like a departure, but I think it's a little bit more of a nuance. I think he's getting to sort of a both and. Like, of course there is negativity, and of course there's reactivity, and of course there's things I don't want to do. They don't make sense to me yet. And just emphasizing these other things can help the couple get out of the quagmire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
so
I
it's
think people
tricky.
do. I think people do validate themselves. They understand why they're not doing it.
They can validate themselves. Yes.
It's like I don't have any question why I'm doing it. I know why I'm doing it because you've
Right.
been a butt, or because I had to do that last time, or because
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah. No, we
So
can
just
definitely
thoughts on
do
that.
that. Well, so he in the workshop presenters update, Harville focused on 4 things. So rather than the 5 R's,
Got the,
he
yeah.
went to these 4 things, which was dialogue, zero negativity, where we convert a frustration into a wish, which is what you're talking about. We convert our frustration into a wish, and the partner acknowledges that, of course, you want that.
Yeah.
And I need to figure out why that's so hard for me to give it to you, because I want you to feel loved, right? So that's our work. And then empathy and affirmations. And this, he was talking to the faculty after that conference, and I heard something different, or maybe it was even Joanne. I heard something different, where instead of flooding, which flooding can be seen as all the things you do right, like all the ways you're performing well for me, that we go to affirmations, which is, you are a marvelous creature of the universe.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do anything. And I just appreciate and affirm you as a human being. So again, I don't think he's saying don't do flooding. I think he's saying, and I want us to think about this other thing, which I think the end of flooding was trying to get to, these global affirmations of you're amazing. I think it was what we were trying to get to. And I love that he is trying to get us to move towards unconditional acceptance and love for our partner. And I think that's really hard because,
this just in.
It is really hard because, of course, oh my gosh, he said something though. Did I write it down? I want to go back and listen to it again because he said something. Okay, let me see if this is, we are already connecting. We just don't know it because we are scared. And I wrote shitless. I doubt he said that. We don't achieve the experiencing of connectedness by striving. We do it by reducing anxiety. If the brain can't predict it, it will get anxious. Okay, that wasn't it though. I don't know if I wrote it down. I'm going to try to just do it off the top of my mind. But basically, his premise was that if I want anything from my partner that they can't give me yet, that I'm infantilizing myself. Because I am basically disempowering like my value, and that I am, lovable, and I'm a marvelous creature of the universe, because I'm saying, you're causing me pain because you're not giving me this. Yeah. And I was like, ouch, like hard, just throwing it down. Yeah. Anyway, I was like, I gotta think more about that. Yeah, but that was really like humbling. Like, oh, yeah, because of course I am also a marvelous creature of the universe, and you're just doing you. I brought up Mel Robbins' book called Let Them.
Yeah.
It's like huge, right? Bestseller. And I was like, I really have to go read this book. But just the title is really enlightening. Yeah. Just let them.
I've just got a couple of couples that are so far from a lot of things right now.
Yeah.
But I have one after 2 years of on, off, just connected, and the thread is strong, and they finally are getting it.
Oh, Bonnie, that's so great.
It needed, the last 2 sessions should have been videoed.
Yes.
I wanted it for them, and I wanted it for me. Like light bulbs turned on.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Phew.
Yeah. Well, but and it's such an interesting thing because like I'm having this experience sometimes, right? Where you like, it takes a long time, and then I go, is it because I changed some little nuance of how I'm thinking about this couple, or
Oh,
did they have the
Michelle.
breakthrough? Like how would you ever know? But I think, you're always thinking so deeply, Bonnie. Like you are really thinking about these couples and this theory. Yeah,
Well, Harville suggests you take the foot off the brake on that.
right. Right. Well, it's beautiful. It's encouraging to hear.
Can I ask a technical question, Bonnie? You said that should have been videoed. In this chapter, he says, or they say, that every session should be videotaped. In this chapter, like they're laying it down. So is that a practice that you sometimes do, you sometimes don't do, or you have done?
I haven't done it since our training when you had to.
Hmm.
I And then every time now we get on Zoom, it says, "Do you want AI to help you out?" I don't know what that's all about, but maybe Steve does. Could you get him for me a minute,
Yeah,
Michelle? Could you get
right.
Steve? Uh,
He hates AI, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah, he hates it. He's an editor and like it's trying to edit things and he hates it.
Boy, does he make sense.
Right? But so
Yeah.
yeah,
So no, Michael, I don't. I guess, um, I could offer it if Zoom does a video. I mean, if we
yeah.
could record and I could send it to him. I don't even, I mean, I know it because it says record here.
hmm
Well,
Um,
well, Michelle is
uh,
recording us right now, so it definitely does it.
yeah.
well, but she doesn't send it to us. So I'm just questioning, how would you do that?
Oh,
Michelle, do you do that?
you can send it through WeTransfer.
It's
If
a
you want to
link.
send
So,
WeTransfer.
send it to the couple, you just upload the file to WeTransfer and put in their email, and then they download it from that service.
It's called WeTransfer.
Yeah, I don't know if it's HIPAA compliant. I don't know.
Oh,
The other thing is to put it like encrypted, which again I don't fully understand, and then share the link to like your Google Drive or someplace where it
ooh,
stays on your system.
mm-hmm,
But I don't know. It's really a tricky thing for sure.
mm-hmm.
well, they're
Um,
they're calling it out in this chapter to actually record everything and literally decide whether you watch it again or you give it to the couple and they watch it again.
I do
And
think that like I do think that we can learn and get better self supervision and supervision when we record it.
yeah,
I
that makes
also
sense.
think as a couple, because it's so experiential, that even if you're moving forward and you're having a breakthrough, to solidify that, it's helpful to watch it again. I mean,
Mhm.
Steve and I have been recorded and watched our sessions, and it's like, oh wow, it's interesting, especially in those moments where I'm resisting something, or yeah, like to see the little tricky things I do. Um, but yeah, I think it's in some ways I wish that our clinical, like that we could do clinical work but not have all these licensing things, because the reality is when we're doing couples work, we're not concerning ourselves with mental illness and diagnoses. And so why can't we record this session and send it to the couple, as long as we're using reasonable, we're not blasting on YouTube. Um, why can't we?
Well, it sounds like we could.
Well, it's tricky because the licensing boards want to have all these rules, around this, and they want to say we're doing therapy. I'm not
Mhm.
sure if we're doing therapy or not. I feel like the couple's doing the therapy with each other, and I'm just holding space.
Hell of a witness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that I still support people getting you know, a very significant education before doing couples work, both
Hmm.
understanding what mental illness looks like and
Yeah,
when to refer out and when, you know, and get a lot of training around working with couples.
by all means,
Yeah.
right?
But
Above our pay grade if it's not being treated.
right, but that does that require a master level license? And I don't know. I don't know.
Um, this
Anyway,
may be this may be way technical then, because you brought it up. I mean, I love the way this conversation is really, really touching on so many things in this chapter, because, I brought it up earlier that the Imago therapist doesn't use the traditional diagnostic techniques, and I'm looking for the paragraph where he calls out again. They call out again that, we don't use
the DSM.
the DSM, and there's one other thing that they um, thought it was called something else. Well, but yeah, your point is so if a couple then presents, because in this chapter they talk about the intake, and you ask if they have pre, be clear about what the question is, but you ask questions about their past in some form or fashion, just to
Yeah,
kind of
the
get the lay of the
doing
land.
the intake on page 255. It says therapists choose to know little, if anything, about the specifics of a couple except their demographic data. The reason they're there, the conditions behind their decision will be solicited from the couple and shared by them in the dialogue process.
The last bit of that paragraph on that page, the intake also asks if there's anything that might impede their engaging fully in the therapy process, such as physical health challenges, mental stress, addiction, unavailability, et cetera, et cetera. The next top of the page, they talk about does not in any way use the standard diagnostic statistical manual, DSM. But if somebody tells you, well, either I'm addicted or I am X. I've been diagnosed by somebody else as X. You know, what do you what do you do with that? I mean, I assume Bonnie, what you just said, are you being treated by anyone for that? Is that do you go down that path at all, or you just try and bring them to the interrelational space between connecting, be dialogical?
Well, I introduce them to the exits if they haven't been to a workshop.
Hmm.
And I just kind of chat with them. These are terminal exit, their behaviors. It's not because we're bad people, it's because we're in pain. And then I hit the catastrophic exits. And I say, if any of these things, you're aware of, that might be in the space between the two of you, that's energy that is really pulling you back, pulling you down. And it might be for us to um, take a look at that. And I have in the past, I don't always do this, but I do. I just ask them.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I also say terminal exits on what? On divorce is kind of a continuum.
Hmm.
So I give them an example of what I did one time where I went to the bookshelf and I started making the corners, the sides of the bookshelf, all my books down the bottom, so that if I did leave, I said, it was seeping out, or that I'm thinking about leaving, and how are you going to go to therapy and have a good experience?
Hmm.
So nobody ever popped that out for me.
Oh, I like that, Bonnie. I want to keep reading this paragraph because I think it's really great. So on page 256, everything you need to know as a therapist will emerge in the process of the couple's engagement with each other through the dialogue process. Like I live by this,
Hmm.
live by this. And I have to constantly be aware of my own phenomenology that I could be telling stories in what I'm seeing happen between the two of them. And so I have to hold that very lightly. But if one of them is frustrated with the other one in the dialogue, then that's a place to help them move towards what they want rather than just a complaint. I remember my son when he was little, he would say, I'm thirsty. And his teacher, this is like his pre-K teacher would say, well, it's nice to meet you, thirsty. And he would be so mad. But she was training him to say, I would like a glass of water, right? So I feel like this is what I'm trying to work with them on. What do you want? What do you want? What couples need is a news story and the courage and skills to live it out in the real world with others. That is the purpose of therapy, to facilitate partner engagement, not to satisfy the therapist's curiosity.
Oh,
Partner engagement keeps couples open to infinite possibilities for their relationship and prevents collapsing that potential into a premature interpretation. So, it's both and. It's both and. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. But the question I would be asking myself is whatever that X is that they just said, right, Michael? Whatever X is it interfering with their ability to connect? And I want to hold that question until they are clear that it is interfering with their ability to connect and something has to be done about it or not. But are there people who drink quite a bit and still are able to have happy, healthy marriages? I think so. Could Stephen and I? Probably not. So, it's just understanding all different kinds of couples, and they all connect in different ways. And my job is just to facilitate what's the new story they want to live into and what do they need to live into it.
my hunch is that's collusion, but anyway. Oh, no, we're just fine drinking. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, and I mean, not like maybe they are. Like maybe it's,
Bonnie, what we talked about before you joined, sorry for interrupting, Michelle, that we were just early in this chapter, the couple's competence is the couple's competence, and they connect the way they connect, not the way we project or believe they should connect.
Right. That got it.
Yeah, and it's tricky because Stephen and I live a mostly sober life. I mean, he's sober. I'm mostly, it's just not a big part of my life. So that is one of the things where it's challenging for me with a couple when my brain tells me there's something going on here that's addiction or whatever it is. And I'm trying to make space for there's all kinds of couples and all kinds of relationships, and this may be working good enough for now. It might not be working in 5 years from now, but right now my job is to just help them figure out what is their life they want it, what do they want it to look like, and
I
what
guess
do
you
they
don't
need.
need to attend to that if you start getting connection.
Right, exactly. So I just love this paragraph. I think it's such a great paragraph.
I'm going to go get trained all over.
Well, that's what I
Come to
brought
my
up.
training, Bonnie. Let's do it.
When
I brought that
I'll
up.
assist.
Yeah, come assist. I won't charge you. Come and you can
Do I have to go?
help
Do
me.
I have to go back to Costa Rica for a vida?
No, I'm doing it in Austin in February.
Are you?
Yeah, we have 30 people registered.
Maybe you need a good assistant.
I need lots of good assistants. We're gonna do it by
That's great.
cohorts. We're gonna do groups of 8 or 10 people, and they'll all work together, and then we'll come together for demonstrations and little teachings.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, yep. So yeah. Anyway, you are always welcome. And you too, Michael. You too.
Awesome.
Because I'm still learning how to teach and train. And I think the
Mm.
more people who have a different, more to add, and it just helps co-create like this beautiful learning environment where we're all kind of poking and saying, well, what about that? Because like I really love how you normalize exits right now, Bonnie. Like that's such a great thing for me to think about. Like, what a beautiful way to do an intake. It's like, yeah, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It means you're in pain. This is how we do it. It's okay, but let's kind of think about these different kinds of things. Because I wouldn't
And you're
think to
right.
do that.
Yeah, eventually, if a couple stays put, that stuff unfolds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always thinking about how do I create the first, second, third, fourth session to make sure they keep going?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Give them enough when they come in and they need a solution, I can't just say, oh, we don't do that here.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
there you go again, connecting to this chapter, because they say essentially sign up for 12 sessions.
That's old.
That's old.
Well, it is because when I got trained, it was I need you to sign up for 12 sessions, and within that 12 weeks, go to a workshop. That was almost written in stone.
I don't think Harville's diverting from it.
Oh, bless his little heart.
Well, but there's some reality in that we can't give them everything they need, in one session or two sessions. But making them commit to 12, I mean, you're going to get resistance. Me knowing that they probably need 12.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Me knowing they need a
Yeah.
workshop, and if they don't do the workshop, I have to do some workshop components, right?
Oh, we do. We do.
Right,
Right.
right.
They get
But
little bits of it.
I do think it is the ideal model, and especially for a new therapist, to at least think about
Mm.
what am I going to do over 12 sessions that's going to help this couple, like, create a vision, move towards the vision,
Get the
understand
negativity.
lost parts,
Right.
understand
Right.
unmet needs, build good habits. Like, these are, yeah. But yeah, Harville's funny this way, I think, in that this is what he said the other day. This was in the meeting, the faculty meeting. He goes, we could be wrong, but we should be very clear and certain. We should not be like, I don't know what he said, but like, we should just be very, very clear. This is what you should do. He goes, we might be wrong, but we should be clear about it.
My gosh.
So like, yeah, that is how he thinks, like 12 sessions, record your sessions, go to a workshop. That's the prescription.
It's like a rocket, there's a good chance this rocket will make it, but we don't know.
Yeah. I remember, and I'm pretty sure it was in the workshop, that he said, I did do a workshop with Harville and Helen once, that to commit to not divorcing for 90 days, but he didn't say commit to 12 sessions or what have you. He did say make a 90-day, zero negativity and practice these things and, stay in the relationship for at least 90 days.
Yeah. Well, I have now committed to going to one of his workshops because of this presentation he did in Chicago. And as faculty, we're thinking a lot about workshops and what works and what doesn't work. And he's doing one in Costa Rica in May. He's going
Gee,
to,
how did he come up with that?
I know,
Wow.
he's going to the, what's it called? Shoot. It's in Nosara. Blue Spirit, I think, is the name of the retreat center.
I think that's where
And
I'm going.
yeah, I think it is where you're going. Yes, in July, right? So you're going to come
Yeah.
hang out with me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No way, Michael. Way to go.
they're presenting in May, and so I'm going to assist, and I'm going to be trying to
great.
fill their workshop here. But yeah, they're coming down for, we're doing the faculty meeting here in Costa Rica this year. And then I
Wow.
convinced, I was like, this is over dinner, planting seeds. It's like, well, if you're coming, why don't you come to Costa Rica and do a workshop? And he said, oh, okay.
If he's going to go that far.
But
That's
that's where
awesome.
I'm going to go see him again, because he has changed the way he does them, and I'm very curious. He's made them shorter. He feels like they're more efficient. He's cut out some stuff, and I really want to see him do it. Him and Helen do it together.
Cool.
So maybe you'll be here. Who knows? Lots of reasons to come.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's always so great to see both of you.
Thanks. Sorry to be late.
Well, no, but it's really nice, Bonnie, like to see you at the conference and like just feel really connected to you from doing this, having these regular
Very much so,
meetings.
Michelle.
Yeah,
It was great seeing you.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so next meeting, chapter 12, and to be continued.
Thank you so much.
The next meeting,
It is
TBC?
No, it's
so it's in
already on the
December,
TBD.
and I moved the time in December because
Yeah,
I
We're going to
wanted
meet
to
in
go.
December?
So we're doing it so 7 a.m. for Michael. I don't know if you'll be there or not.
I don't know.
10 a.m. Eastern, because I wanted to go to the Power of Poetry that IRNA is putting on with Jane Gumbel and her poetry. She's
So
something
it's
else.
December who?
December 5.
December 5th.
Okay, got it.
So the idea would be to do the book discussion, have a half an hour, and then go to the Power of Poetry.
And what time would that be Eastern?
10.
Did you say?
10 Eastern.
10 a.m. I'll come walking in after a Cairo appointment. Those are hard to
Okay.
get. And I will
Yes.
definitely see you.
Okay, good. And
Thanks
then
for what you do, Michelle.
thank you. And then what we're going to do is once we finish all the chapters, we're going to do it again, not record it. And we're going to set the dates and the times for the whole time. So rather than this pop-up thing, which has been fine, it's like working with my schedule. I'm going to commit. We're going to commit.
Right?
Well, yeah, it's been pretty damn close, I think.
We've made it once a month.
Yeah,
rain or shine.
exactly.
Okay, well, thanks again, Michael, for your commitment, and we'll see you all on December 5th if we can.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Thanks all for you. Bye.
Bye.